Twist villains can elevate movies that use them well to a whole new level, going down in cinematic history with some of the most gripping reveals of all time. It's true that in recent years, Disney twist villains and other poorly executed uses of the concept have given hidden antagonists in movies that are revealed later a bad rep. It's easy to forget how genuinely captivating a good twist villain can be, with a small handful of standout examples making the most of the trope. Of course, most twist villains exist prior in their reveal as supporting characters, totally unsuspected of being the driving force of conflict within a film until they're dramatically revealed, even in the movies that specifically have a murder mystery or otherwise mysterious villain whose identity needs uncovering. Good twist reveals will eventually place the blame on a character no one suspects. Welcome to Popcorn Programming, and here are the 10 best villains that were a twist villain in movie history. Pop pop! 10, we start out with the classic. Number 10, Norman Bates in Psycho. Often considered to be the original slasher movie, Alfred Hitchcock's masterpiece Psycho has left a massive crater of cinematic influence even so many years later. Today, most people recognise Norman Bates as the true evil behind the film's atrocities through sheer pop culture osmosis. If nothing else, with entire series like Bates Motel dedicated to his psychopathy. It's easy to forget that in the original narrative, the reveal that Norman was the murderer all along is presented as a huge shock. Every piece of evidence points to the matriarch proprietor of the Bates Motel as the culprit, especially when the silhouette of an old woman is shown raising a knife for a split second in the infamous shower scene. However, the ultimate twist that Norman himself has been the murderer, having killed and impersonated his mother many years ago, is a terrifying one, indeed to the uninitiated. The first shot of him wearing his mother's clothes and wig is horrifically jarring, and his insidious grin the film closes on as he sits in captivity lingers as a chilling final image. In number 9, we have Billy and Stu from Scream. While Psycho may have more or less established a slasher movie as a popular horror subgenre worthy of imitation, Scream was the first film to examine the arbitrary rules these stories had begun to follow and turn them on their head. The identity of the Ghostface killer is a huge crux of the film's action, and the story absolutely demolishes typical expectations with the reveal that Ghostface is not just a single lone actor, but a pair of murderers working in tandem. The mechanics as to how Scream pulls this off is quite impressive. Protagonist Signey at first seems to have the perfect candidate for the killer's identity with her mother's supposed murderer. Her boyfriend Billy does admittedly draw some suspicion, but his timing of his appearances alongside Ghostface activity seem to make him an impossible choice. The ultimate revelation that Billy is working in tandem with the comic relief character Stu is a clever way to subvert expectations. After all, why wouldn't a masked murderer have an accomplice? In number 8, we have Mr. Waternoose from Monsters Inc. Over the years, Pixar has tried out many villains with twist identities, such as Bellwether from Zootopia, I know that's Disney, but close enough, or Screenslaver from Incredibles 2. Sadly, most of these twist villains end up lacking impact due to a combination of their evil plans making little sense, or their reveals being far too obvious. But one of the company's first attempts at the concept, Mr. Waternoose from Monsters Inc., is still one of their most effective. Mr. Waternoose is so shocking as a twist villain because the film already has an antagonist with Randall, though in retrospect it seems obvious that he wouldn't be acting alone. Waternoose plainly tells Sully that he'd do anything to keep the company alive early in the film, and his design goes from the friendly mentor figure to terrifying spider monster in a split second when his true intentions are finally uncovered. A callous CEO who puts the fate of the company above all else, Mr. Waternoose is one of the more unnerving villains Pixar has dreamed up. In number 7, we have Kaiser Soze from The Usual Suspects. The Usual Suspects is a decent crime thriller that's elevated into cult status off of the sheer power of its twist villain's reveal. The entire mystery of the film hinges on the hunt for the legendary criminal Kaiser Soze, who is feared as an almost mythical force in the crime underworld by police and crooks alike. The film is told via flashbacks with the interrogation of a survivor of Soze's latest attack used as a framing device. The interview eventually ends and con artist Verbal is eventually released. It's only after he gets away, though, that Agent Dave Kuhan looks around his borrowed office and realises every detail of Verbal's story was completely made up, improvised using various words around the room as inspiration. It turns out that Kaiser Sose is none other than Virgil himself, who's able to get away just in the nick of time in a chilling final scene. Few films have pulled off as big of a sucker punch as The Usual Suspects gets away with. In number 6, we have John Kramer in Saw. James Wan's original Saw is a masterpiece of subversion, even if the subsequent Saw sequels haven't been able to quite recapture this magic. The first movie introduces the Jigsaw Killer, a sadistic slasher villain who crafts twisted games for his victims to play, often forcing them to mutilate themselves in order to survive. For the majority of the film, the mysterious hospital orderly Zepp seems to be the primary running lead for Jigsaw's identity. However, the scene in which the unidentified bald man in the centre of the decrepit bathroom stands up as the Saw theme begins to blare eventually proves otherwise. It's unearthed that terminal cancer patient John Kramer is the real menace behind Saw, his diagnosis giving him a new appreciation for life that he wants to forcibly instill in his victims. Kramer goes on to become a legendary horror movie villain, but his shock twist identity reveal is still one of the greatest. I'm getting chills discussing it now. In number 5, we have Angela / Peter Baker from Sleepaway Camp. When it comes to the discussion of the greatest horror movie twist villains, Peter Angela Baker from 1983's Sleepaway Camp is another top contender. The movie follows a lonely young girl named Angela Baker who exhibits signs of trauma following her brother's death in a tragic accident. Sent to a sleepaway camp for the summer, Angela's bullying becomes a nightmare when a series of grisly murders start plaguing the campgrounds. In a stunning turn of events, Sleepaway Camp ends with Angela's true identity out in the open. Not only was Angela the killer all along, but she is actually Peter Baker, the surviving child of the accident in which the real Angela died, disguised as his late sister. The blood-curdling final scream of facial expression Peter makes as his secret is exposed is one of the most captivating scenes in any slasher movie, and the film's ability to reveal a villain that was actually the main protagonist all along is devastatingly effective. In number 4, we have Mysterio from Spider-Man Far From Home. Mysterio is an interesting case for a twist villain that must be appreciated in a vacuum. For the most part, the Marvel Cinematic Universe's villains are glaringly obvious, especially to those who know the comics. But with no prior knowledge of Mysterio as a character, Jake Gyllenhaal's version of the vengeful illusionist hoping to get back at his dead nemesis is a wonderful antagonistic jerk. At first, even comic readers might be hopeful that the MCU's version of Mysterio is a good guy, after all, helping to defeat the threat of the Elementals and guide Peter Parker in lieu of Tony Stark's mentorship. But the moment in which Quentin Beck breaks character and laughs to his team about tricking Parker into handing over the valuable Edith technology, with charisma to spare, Beck's ultimate betrayal and lasting stab at Spider-Man by revealing his secret identity to the world makes him a fantastic twist villain. In number 3, we have Ransom Drysdale from Knives Out. It's easy to see why Knives Out inspired a whole spin-off series based on Daniel Craig's efforts. Detective Benoit Blanc. Being such a fun murder mystery with a genuinely unexpected villain, the star-studded cast play a family of spoiled-rich scions who are left in shock when their father is suddenly killed by a throat slit. Grandson Ransom Drysdale hires the famous private investigator Benoit Blanc to uncover the truth. Patriarch Harlan Thrombey took his own life after being mistakenly killed by his beloved living nurse, Martha. With Harlan killed by a seemingly innocent mistake and the plot being driven by Martha's attempts to avoid prosecution, it doesn't seem as though Knives Out even has an overarching villain. This notion is disproven, however, when it is stunningly unveiled that Chris Evans ransomed purposely poisoned Harlan in order to implicate Martha and prevent her from inheriting his estate. Chris Evans nails it as a smug villain, bold enough to hire the world's best detective to investigate his own crime, and his unflinching smile and curt laugh upon being caught are pure gold. In number 2, we have Mr. Glass from Unbreakable. Considering M. Night Shyamalan's many twist endings, it figures that the famed director would come up with one of the better twist villains to ever exist in a movie. At first, Unbreakable presents itself as a relatively straightforward supernatural thriller, telling the story of Bruce Willis's David Dunn, who learns that he has superpowers after being the sole survivor of a deadly train crash. As a coming to the realization, Dunn enlists the help of a zealous comic book reader and brittle bone disease sufferer Elisha Price to make sense of this new place in the world. As great as Elisha's advice is, Dunn soon realizes that he is a domestic terrorist who had a hand in creating the very same train accident David was in. Calling himself Mr. Glass, Elijah sees himself as a mastermind villain from a comic book meant to act as David's arch nemesis. Samuel L. Jackson lends the villain a certain vile tenderness that's hard to find anywhere else, making for an unforgettably surprising antagonist. And at number 1, we have Scrappy-Doo from Scooby-Doo. Villainous plot twists don't always have to be stunningly dramatic reveals that shock audiences into submission. In many cases, they're at their best when played for laughs, as demonstrated by James Gunn's live-action Scooby-Doo film. The movie begins with the classic Scooby-Doo gang split up due to personal differences, only to be brought back together by an eccentric resort owner named Mondavarius. Soon the gang uncover a ghoulish plot to release actual real demons via an ancient ritual led by Mondavarius himself. Mondavarius ends up being a humanoid robot controlled by none other than Scrappy-Doo, the much maligned and unpopular nephew of Scooby, who acted as a sidekick before being kicked out of the gang for his gross behaviour. The entire plot ends up being a ruse orchestrated by Scrappy to get his revenge on the gang, making for a hilariously unexpected twist villain. Even if Scrappy isn't set up earlier in the plot, anyone more than vaguely aware of Scooby-Doo in pop culture will remember him as a deep cut that works perfect as a scorned movie antagonist. And there you have it, there's our list. So what do you think? Let us know in the comment section down below. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and click that subscribe button if you are new around here. That's all for now, so I'd like to thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Pop pop!